The perfectly calculated arrival. The Zenthari Empire had conquered 47 star systems using pure mathematical precision. Their ships moved in perfect geometric formations, their cities were monuments to efficiency, and their society operated on algorithms that had been refined over 6,000 years. When they discovered Earth, the blue-green marble orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, they calculated its assimilation would take exactly 347.6 days. Commander Vexith Kor stood on the bridge of the conquest vessel Absolute Certainty, his silver exoskeleton gleaming under the sterile white lights. Behind him, 12 tactical officers worked in complete silence, their neural implants synchronized to the millisecond. The holographic display showed Earth rotating peacefully below, completely unaware of its impending reorganization. "Begin Phase 1, Vexith announced. Diplomatic Override Protocol. Establish communication with planetary leadership." Within 3 minutes, every television, computer and communication device on Earth broadcast the same message. Vexith's image appeared, his face an unsettling blend of humanoid features processed through algorithmic beauty standards. "People of Earth," he intoned, "your civilization operates at 23.7% efficiency. This is unacceptable. The Zenthari Empire offers you logic, order, and optimization. You will be integrated into our systems within 1 standard year. Resistance is mathematically futile." At the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Emergency Director Cassidy Okoye watched the broadcast with her entire team. The translators had gone silent. The military advisors looked pale. Secretary General Hiroshi Tanaka had his head in his hands. "Well," Cassidy said, breaking the silence, "that's not great." "Not great?" Her deputy Marcus Webb turned to her incredulously. "They just announced they're taking over the planet." Cassidy checked her watch. "Yeah, but it's 11:47. I say we break for lunch, let everyone process this and reconvene at 2 o'clock. I can't think on an empty stomach, and I'm betting the aliens don't know about our cafeteria's Thursday curry." Secretary General Tanaka looked up. "Director Okoye, aliens are invading. And they'll still be invading in 2 hours, Cassidy replied, already heading for the door. "Besides, they said 1 year. That's plenty of time. Marcus, you coming?" The Zenthari monitoring stations detected no military mobilization, no panic, no coordinated response. Instead, their sensors showed millions of humans simply stopping what they were doing. Cities didn't erupt in chaos. Stock markets didn't crash. People just seemed to pause, shrug, and go about their business. Vexith recalculated 3 times. "This is irregular." Tactical Officer QNN, analyze human response patterns. QNN's neural implant flickered. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests they are engaging in resource consumption. Approximately 34% of the detected population has redirected to food preparation and ingestion facilities." "They're eating?" Vexith's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Now, do they not understand the gravity of this moment? Perhaps their neural development is insufficient for proper threat assessment," suggested Junior Commander Zale. "Should we escalate to Phase 2? Vexith considered this. The entire conquest plan was predicated on humanity's predicted response. Either immediate surrender once they understood Zenthari superiority, or futile military resistance that could be precisely countered. Instead, the humans were doing neither. They were having lunch. Meanwhile, in a small diner in Brooklyn, construction worker Deshaun Carter sat across from his friend Riley Park, a high school chemistry teacher. They both watched the replayed alien message on the diner's television. "So," Riley said, dipping a French fry in ketchup, "aliens are real and they think we're inefficient." "Man, my foreman's been saying that for years," Deshaun replied, taking a massive bite of his burger. "Didn't need aliens to tell me." "You worried?" Deshaun shrugged. "I dunno. They seem pretty uptight. Give them a few weeks dealing with human bureaucracy, they'll probably leave on their own." Riley laughed. "True. Hey, you still good to help me move on Saturday?" "Yeah, but it'll have to be after my shift. And if the aliens haven't invaded by then." "Deal." Aboard the Absolute Certainty, Vexith made a decision. If the humans wouldn't respond to diplomatic override, he would demonstrate Zenthari superiority firsthand. He would land on Earth personally and negotiate with their leadership using proven psychological manipulation techniques that had worked on every other species. He calculated his arrival for precisely 2 p.m. Geneva time, allowing the humans adequate time to prepare for his presence. What Vexith didn't factor into his equations was that humans ran on a very different kind of time. The coffee break complication. The Zen3 landing craft descended on the United Nations Plaza at exactly 2 p.m., its crystalline hull refracting sunlight into mathematically perfect rainbow patterns. The vessel's landing struts touched the ground simultaneously, weight distributed with precise equilibrium. The ramp extended at the optimal angle for dignified approach. Commander Vexith Corps emerged, flanked by 2 honor guards whose movements were synchronized to the nanosecond. He had prepared an 18-minute speech that would logically outline the benefits of assimilation and the futility of resistance. The plaza was empty. Well, not entirely empty. A single human sat on a bench near the entrance, wearing a blue uniform with a UN security badge. She was holding a paper cup and appeared to be doing nothing else. Vexith approached her, his honor guard maintaining perfect formation. "I am Commander Vexith Corps of the Zen3 Empire. I demand an immediate audience with your planetary leadership." The security guard, whose badge read, Officer Keiko Tanaka, looked up at him and took a long sip from her cup. "They're in a meeting. I have arrived at the designated time. 2 p.m. Geneva local time. My calculations. Yeah, but the 2 o'clock meeting ran long. Someone asked a question at 1:58, which led to a discussion, which led to forming a subcommittee." Keiko checked her watch. "They should be on coffee break now. Probably another 20 minutes. Vexith's mandibles twitched. Coffee break wasn't in any of his calculations. "This is unacceptable. I am here to negotiate your planet's integration into." "You want some coffee?" Keiko gestured to a food cart nearby. "Giuseppe makes a really good espresso. I do not require stimulants. I require your leadership's presence." "Okay, but you're going to be waiting anyway, and Giuseppe's cart closes at 3 o'clock. Keiko stood up and walked toward the cart, leaving Vexith standing alone in his perfect formation. Inside the UN building, Cassidy Okoye stood by a conference room window, watching the alien commander grow increasingly agitated in the plaza below. Marcus stood beside her, also holding coffee. "Should we go down?" Marcus asked. "Give it another 10 minutes, Cassidy replied. "Let him simmer. That seems unprofessional. Marcus, that guy showed up and told us we're inefficient. I spent 6 years in military logistics before this job. You know what the most important thing I learned was?" "What?" "Never skip your breaks. Tired people make bad decisions. And right now, I'm making the decision that rigid robot commander down there needs to understand that humans don't just operate on schedules." Secretary General Tanaka joined them at the window. "Your strategy is to irritate him with delays?" "Not irritate," Cassidy corrected. "Confuse. Look at him. He's recalculating. That's his 3rd posture adjustment in 2 minutes. He came here expecting a script and we're not following it." By the time Cassidy's team finally made it down to the plaza, Commander Vexith had been waiting for 43 minutes. His honor guard remained perfectly still, but Vexith himself had developed what could only be described as an annoyed clicking sound. "Commander Vexith," Cassidy extended her hand. "Sorry for the wait. Conference calls, you know how it is." Vexith looked at her hand, scanned it with his optical implants and did not shake it. "I do not know how it is. The Zen3 do not experience scheduling conflicts. We operate on synchronized chronological matrices." "Sounds exhausting," Cassidy said pleasantly. "Please come inside. We've prepared a meeting room." The meeting room was on the 7th floor, deliberately chosen because the elevator was under maintenance. As they climbed the stairs, Vexith began his prepared speech. "The Zen3 Empire has identified 14,247 inefficiencies in human civilization. Your transportation systems operate at barely 15% capacity during non-peak hours. Your energy distribution networks lose 23% of generated power to resistance. Your political systems require an average of 847 individual approvals for infrastructure projects that our algorithms could approve in 3.2 seconds. Can I stop you there?" Cassidy interjected as they reached the 4th floor landing. "How long is this list?" "I have prepared comprehensive documentation. The full analysis is 2,847 pages. Marcus muttered something under his breath that sounded like, "Oh my God." "Right," Cassidy said. "Here's the thing. Nobody's going to read 2,847 pages. Can you give us like a 1-page executive summary?" Vexith stopped walking. "Summary? But the data must be comprehensive. Each inefficiency builds upon the previous calculations. To understand point 4,839, you must first comprehend points 1 through 4,838. "But do we though?" Cassidy had reached the 7th floor and held the door open. Do we really? In the meeting room, more confusion awaited. The Zen-3 commander expected a formal negotiation chamber. Instead, he found a room with a scratched conference table, mismatched chairs, and a projector that took Marcus 3 tries to get working. "Please excuse the equipment," Secretary General Tanaka said. "The good conference room is being used for the annual budget review." "You have multiple conference rooms of varying quality?" Vexitha's optical sensors flickered with incomprehension. "Why not optimize to a single standard?" "Well, sometimes you need a big room, sometimes a small room." Tanaka trailed off, realizing he was explaining basic human logic to someone who ran on pure efficiency. The meeting finally began at 3:17 p.m., 77 minutes behind Vexitha's calculated schedule. And it only got worse from there. The bureaucratic labyrinth. Commander Vexith Corps had conquered species that wielded quantum weapons, negotiated with civilizations whose mathematics operated in 17 dimensions, and personally optimized the industrial output of 12 planetary systems. Nothing in his 6,000 years of imperial training had prepared him for human paperwork. Form 27B? Vexith held up the document with two of his four manipulator appendages, staring at it as if it might suddenly make sense. "This is the third form requesting identical information." Cassidy didn't look up from her tablet. "Yes, but 27B goes to the Security Council, 19A goes to the Economic Committee, and the blue form, that's for our records." "Your records of what?" "Of the forms." Vexith set down the paper with a careful precision that somehow conveyed deep frustration. "This is the inefficiency I spoke of. In the Zen-3 Empire, all data streams to a central processing matrix. One input, universal distribution. No redundancy." "Sounds convenient," Marcus said, sliding another stack of papers across the table. "But we'll need you to fill these out too. It's standard procedure for any organization requesting planetary access." "I am not requesting access. I am announcing your integration into our empire." "Right, but see, that's basically the same as a planetary access request, which requires security clearance level 7, which you don't have yet, which is why you need to fill out these forms." Cassidy tapped the stack. "Also, we'll need 3 forms of identification and a processing fee." "A fee?" Vexitha's optical sensors flashed crimson. "You want me to pay you for the privilege of being conquered?" "It's not conquest, it's planetary integration, and according to Section 14, Paragraph 9 of the UN Charter on External Relations, any entity seeking to modify Earth's governmental structure must first register as a," Marcus checked his notes, "interested party with geopolitical implications. That's a $500 application fee." For a long moment, Vexith simply stared at the humans. His computational matrix ran through every first contact scenario in Zen-3 history. None of them involved filing fees. "I will simply override your systems," Vexith declared. "My ship can access any of your computer networks and implement Zen-3 protocols directly." "Sure, but you'll need a systems integration permit for that," Cassidy replied. Form 84C. "Though fair warning, the processing time is usually 8 to 12 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks? Could be faster if you pay for expedited processing. That's an additional $2,000. Vexith stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor in a decidedly non-optimal manner. "This is absurd. I will speak directly to your planet's supreme leader." "We don't have one," Secretary General Tanaka said apologetically. "We have 193 member nations, each with their own leaders, all of whom would need to approve any major planetary decision." "How long does that take?" "Well, there's the General Assembly in September, but if you need an emergency session we could probably arrange something in 6 months? 6 months? Vexitha's voice reached a pitch that his vocal modulators had never been designed to produce. "My entire conquest timeline is 1 year. "Then you're really going to want to get started on those forms," Cassidy said pleasantly. By the time the meeting adjourned at 6:47 p.m., Vexith had calculated it should end at 5 p.m. The commander had filled out exactly 0 forms and had developed what he suspected might be the first stress-induced malfunction in Zen-3 neural implant history. Aboard the Absolute Certainty, Junior Commander Zale greeted him with a report. "Sir, we've been monitoring human communication networks as ordered. The results are concerning." "Show me." The holographic display lit up with thousands of social media posts, news articles and videos. Humans weren't panicking about the alien invasion. They were making jokes about it. One viral video showed a teenager in her bedroom. "So aliens are invading because we're inefficient? My mom's been saying that about my room for years. Maybe I should let the aliens organize my closet." Another showed an office worker. Alien overlords want to optimize Earth? Cool. Start with the subway system. And while you're at it, fix the office printer. That thing's been broken for 3 months. A news commentator opined, if the aliens think they can make the DMV more efficient, more power to them. They are not taking this seriously, Zale observed. No, Vexith agreed, watching meme after meme scroll past. They are not. Back on Earth, in a sports bar in Chicago, a group of friends watched a news panel debating the alien arrival. Construction worker Tomas Reeves raised his beer. You know what I think? I think these aliens have never dealt with a contractors union. Give him a week of negotiating with Bobby Kowalski, they'll be begging to leave. His friend Yuki Sato laughed. Or let them try to get a building permit in this city. They said 1 year to take over the planet? It takes longer than that just to get approval to renovate a bathroom. Should we be worried though? Asked their friend Priya Mehta, a software developer. I mean, they have spaceships and technology way beyond ours. Sure, Tomas conceded. But do they have Jimmy's deep dish pizza? Because that's worth fighting for. They clinked their glasses together, and somewhere in orbit, Commander Vexitha's probability matrices continued trying to calculate human unpredictability, with a rapidly increasing margin of error. The efficiency paradox. 3 weeks into the invasion, Commander Vexith Core decided to take direct action. If the humans wouldn't process his paperwork efficiently, he would demonstrate Zenthree's superiority by solving one of their infrastructure problems. His analysis had identified the New York City subway system as operating at a catastrophically inefficient 34% capacity utilization rate with an average delay time of 4.7 minutes. He could fix that. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, Zenthree technical drones infiltrated the subway control systems. By 5:30 a.m., they had completely restructured the routing algorithms, optimized the timing sequences, and synchronized all trains to arrive at exactly the calculated intervals. The system now operated at 97.3% efficiency. By 8 a.m., absolute chaos reigned. Transport Authority Supervisor Jamila Washington stared at her monitors in disbelief as complaint calls flooded in. What do you mean the C train left without you? It arrived exactly on time. That's the problem, the commuter on the phone yelled. I've taken the C train for 12 years. It's always 3 minutes late. I time my coffee run to the lateness. Now I missed my train and my coffee. Another line lit up. This caller was crying. The L train was early. Early? I've never seen it early. I thought I was having a stroke. Similar reports came from every line. The trains were running perfectly, precisely, optimally, and everyone hated it. How is this possible? Jamila muttered, pulling up the system logs. That's when she noticed the Zenthreee code signatures. Oh no. The aliens fixed the subway. By noon, social media was ablaze. Aliens made the trains run on time, and now I can't blame the subway for being late to work. This is the worst invasion ever. RIP to the great NYC tradition of bonding with strangers over train delays. The aliens have taken that from us. The F train used to give me 15 minutes to mentally prepare for my day. Now it's just there. I'm not ready. Vexith watched the response data with growing confusion. They are complaining about increased efficiency. This is illogical. Objective metrics show a 184% improvement in system performance. Tactical Officer QNN reviewed the sentiment analysis. Sir, the humans appear to have integrated the system's inefficiency into their behavioral patterns. They've adapted their routines to expect delays. Then they will adapt to the improved system. The data suggests otherwise. Several humans have started a petition to bring back our unreliable trains. That afternoon, Vexith found himself in another meeting, this time with MTA officials, union representatives, and a surprisingly angry crowd of commuters who had somehow heard about the meeting and shown up. You can't just change the subway without consulting us, Jamila declared. People rely on the patterns. The patterns were inefficient, Vexith countered. Yeah, but they were our inefficiency, shouted someone from the crowd. That's the New York experience. A union representative named Marcus D'Angelo stepped forward. Also, you've violated about 17 different labor agreements. Those drones didn't have proper credentials to work on city infrastructure. They are autonomous machines. They require no credentials. In this city, even the rats need credentials, Marcus replied. You've got machines doing work that's supposed to be done by union workers. That's a grievance. Actually, that's about 40 grievances. Vexith attempted logic. But the system functions better now. Does it? Asked an elderly commuter named Rosa Chin. I used to run into my friend Patricia every morning on the delayed 6 train. We've been meeting like that for 8 years. This morning the train was on time, Patricia took a different car because her timing was off and I sat alone. Is that better? The room fell silent. Vexitha's computational matrix tried to calculate the efficiency value of accidental friendship formation through systemic delays. It returned an error message. Your social bonding protocols are contingent on infrastructure failure, he said slowly, trying to understand. Sometimes, yeah, Rosa said. Look, I know you think we're inefficient. And maybe we are. But our inefficiency has a rhythm. We've built our lives around it. That evening, Vexith stood on the UN building's rooftop with Cassidy, watching the sunset over the city. He had demanded this meeting. She had suggested the location. Your species is paradoxical, Vexith said. You complain about inefficiency but reject optimization. Cassidy leaned against the railing. We're not rejecting optimization. We're rejecting your optimization. There's a difference. Explain. Okay, take lunch breaks. To you, they're inefficient, right? People stop working, productivity drops. Correct. But if you don't let people take breaks, they burn out, make mistakes, and eventually productivity drops even more. The inefficiency of a lunch break is actually an investment in sustained performance. That is a logical point, Vexith admitted. But it does not explain the subway phenomenon. Cassidy smiled. That's because life isn't just about getting from point A to point B as fast as possible. Sometimes it's about what happens during the journey. The conversations, the observations, the guy playing saxophone in the station. You optimize the arrival time but remove the experience. Experience is not measurable. Sure it is. Just not with your metrics. Cassidy turned to face him. Commander, here's what I think is happening. You've conquered dozens of worlds by making everything more efficient. But Earth? We're already inefficient and we like it that way. We built our entire civilization on improvisation, happy accidents, and doing things the long way because the long way is more interesting. Vexitha's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. This is not conquest, is it? This is education. Maybe, Cassidy acknowledged. The question is, who's learning what? Far below, the New York City subway rumbled through its tunnels, now running on a compromised system that Vexitha's drones had reluctantly programmed. It was 87% efficient, enough to be better but not so much that it disrupted everyone's carefully constructed routines. The trains were, once again, running approximately 3 minutes late. Somewhere in the city, Rosa Chin met Patricia for their morning chat. The break room revolution. Vexith decided his next demonstration would be perfect. He would optimize a single human workplace as a pilot program. He chose the Riverside Regional Hospital in Seattle, a mid-sized medical facility with documented inefficiencies in staff scheduling, patient flow, and resource allocation. He would transform it into a model of Zen3 precision. He did not anticipate Nurse Indira Ramesh. Absolutely not, Indira said, arms crossed, blocking the entrance to the staff break room where Vexith had planned to install a Zen3 optimization terminal. Behind her stood 17 other nurses, doctors, and orderlies in various stages of their breaks, some holding coffee, others mid-sandwich. This terminal will reduce patient wait times by 43%, Vexith explained. It will optimize your scheduling to eliminate all downtime. Our downtime? Indira's eyebrow arched. You mean our breaks? Breaks are inefficient. The terminal will calculate the precise moment each staff member requires rest and automatically. I'm going to stop you right there, interrupted Dr. Felix Okonkwo, a resident who had been peacefully eating leftover pasta. Did you just say you want to eliminate our breaks? Not eliminate. Optimize. The average healthcare worker spends 47 minutes per shift in unproductive rest periods. The break room erupted. Unproductive. Indira's voice cut through the chaos. I just worked a 12-hour shift. 6 hours ago, a 7-year-old coded on me, and I had to tell his mother we couldn't save him. Then I delivered a healthy baby girl, cleaned up someone's vomit, placed 17 IVs, and broke up a fight in the ER. And you're telling me the 15 minutes I spend in this room, drinking bad coffee and staring at the wall so I don't scream, is unproductive? Vexitha's optical sensors flickered. Your emotional distress could be more efficiently processed through. Get out, Indira said quietly. I am attempting to help. Get out of our break room. Hospital Administrator Carol Winters found Vexith in the hallway 10 minutes later, looking as bewildered as a being without visible facial expressions could look. They rejected optimization, he said. I offered to reduce their stress through algorithmic emotional processing, and they became more stressed. Carol sighed. Commander, can I show you something? She led him to the hospital's observation deck overlooking the emergency department. Below, controlled chaos reigned, nurses rushed between rooms, doctors consulted over tablets, patients waited in various states of distress. Looks inefficient, doesn't it? Carol said. Profoundly. Now watch this. Carol pointed to a corner of the break room visible through a window. Indira had returned along with 2 other nurses. They sat in silence, one passing the other's tissues. After 3 minutes, one of them said something. The others laughed, a tired, ragged laugh but genuine. See that? Carol continued. That's Indira, Keisha, and Yuki. They just lost a patient together. 20 minutes ago they were fighting to save a life and it wasn't enough. Right now they're not being productive. They're being human. They're processing grief. They're supporting each other. And in 10 minutes they'll go back out there and save someone else's life. This could be optimized. No, it couldn't, Carol interrupted. Because medicine isn't just about optimal outcomes. It's about people, messy, emotional, irrational people, taking care of other messy, emotional, irrational people. The inefficiency is the humanity. Vexith watched the break room for a long time. In his computational matrix, he tried to calculate the value of shared grief, mutual support, moments of quiet before returning to crisis. The numbers kept returning null values. That evening, aboard the Absolute Certainty, Vexith called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. I am beginning to suspect, he announced, that our conquest methodology may be fundamentally flawed. Junior Commander Zale's neural implant flickered in surprise. Sir? We have approached Earth as we approach all civilizations. Identify inefficiencies, implement solutions, integrate into the Empire. But human inefficiency appears to be. He struggled with the concept, intentional, structural, perhaps even necessary. Tactical Officer QNN pulled up data streams. Sir, we've been monitoring human productivity across multiple sectors. In every case where we've attempted optimization, overall output has increased but worker satisfaction has decreased by an average of 73%. More concerning, the humans actively resist improvements. They're not resisting improvements, Vexith said slowly, the realization crystallizing. They're resisting our definition of improvement. On Earth, in break rooms and cafeterias, on park benches and coffee shops, humans took their breaks. They scrolled through phones, chatted with coworkers, stared into space, did crossword puzzles, or simply existed for a few moments without purpose or productivity. In a construction site break room, Deshaun Carter sat with Riley Park, who had come to visit during lunch. Saw on the news the aliens tried to optimize the hospital, Riley said. How'd that go? Nurses kicked them out. Deshaun laughed. Good. You can't optimize people. My dad tried to optimize Thanksgiving dinner once, turned it into a precision operation with timers and schedules. You know what happened? What? Dinner was ready exactly on time. And it was the most miserable Thanksgiving we ever had. No one was in the kitchen joking around. No one was stealing bites of stuffing. No football game on in the background. Just efficiency. Deshaun took a bite of his sandwich. Next year we went back to chaos. Best meal we ever had. In orbit, Commander Vexith Core stared at Earth through the observation portal and had a thought that no Zenthri commander had ever had before. What if we're the ones who need to adapt? The Great Compromise. Commander Vexith Core did something that shocked his entire crew. He called off the invasion. Not permanently, he insisted, just a tactical reassessment period. He needed to understand humans before he could integrate them into the Empire. And to understand them, he decided he would need to experience their inefficiency firsthand. Which was how the supreme military commander of the Zenthri Empire's conquest fleet found himself working a shift at a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon. No, said shift manager Tomas Ruiz for the 3rd time. You can't tell customers their order is suboptimal. Even if their triple-shot caramel macchiato with oat milk and 2 pumps of vanilla is objectively a beverage crime. But the combination of those ingredients creates a 3.7% chance of digestive discomfort, Vexith protested, his manipulator appendages awkwardly gripping the espresso machine. They're paying $7.50 for it. Let them have their digestive discomfort. Tomas demonstrated the milk steaming technique again. And you're over-aerating the milk. It should be silky, not foamy. The optimal milk temperature is 65 degrees Celsius, achieved through 47 seconds of steam application. Vexith, buddy. Stop optimizing the milk. At the end of the lunch rush, Tomas found Vexith sitting at a back table, staring at a half-empty coffee cup. You okay? Tomas asked. I am experiencing confusion, Vexith admitted. A customer ordered a drink, specified 17 modifications, then complained it didn't taste like the drink they ordered. The logical inconsistency is troubling. That's just humans, man. We're walking contradictions. But why? Why not simply order what you actually want? Tomas sat down across from him. Because half the time we don't know what we want. We're figuring it out as we go. That's the point of having options, of being able to change your mind, of making mistakes and learning from them. But mistakes are inefficient. Mistakes are how we grow. Meanwhile, Cassidy had arranged for more Zen-3 crew members to experience various Earth occupations. Junior Commander Zale was assigned to a kindergarten classroom in Atlanta. It lasted 47 minutes. They are small, loud, and completely resistant to logical instruction, Zale reported via hologram, looking genuinely traumatized. I explained the optimal method for organizing building blocks by color, size, and weight. A child named Emma responded by throwing blocks at me and declaring herself Princess of Chaos. Children are naturally inefficient, Vexith agreed. No, interrupted kindergarten teacher Aisha Johnson, who had joined the call. Children are naturally curious. Emma wasn't being chaotic, she was testing boundaries, seeing what happens when order breaks down. That's learning. Your method would have taught her to follow instructions. My method teaches her to think. Tactical Officer QNN was placed in a restaurant kitchen under Chef Marcus Beaumont. That went slightly better. The human became agitated when I suggested we prepare all meals using standardized portions and automated cooking times, QNN reported. But then he let me taste something he called cooking by feel, where he adjusted seasoning without measurement. It was. QNN paused, struggling with the concept. Surprisingly acceptable. Each dish was different, but each was appropriate for its ingredients. You're learning. Chef Marcus beamed through the video call. That's what separates cooking from assembly. You've got to feel it, taste it, adjust on the fly. No two tomatoes are identical, no two steaks cooked the same. You've got to adapt. That word, adapt, kept appearing in Vexitha's observations. His most revelatory experience came during his required lunch break. Tomas had insisted he actually take one, sitting down, not working, not optimizing anything. I don't understand the purpose, Vexith said. I do not require sustenance at this interval. It's not about sustenance. It's about stopping. Just being. Watch. Tomas pulled out his phone and showed Vexith a photo. That's my daughter, Isabella. She's 7. This morning she spent 15 minutes trying to tie her shoes. Could I have tied them in 5 seconds? Yeah. But she wanted to do it herself. So I waited. Was it efficient? No. Was it worth it? Hell yes. Because she learned shoe tying? Because she learned that she could figure it out. That's what breaks are like, man. They're not about doing nothing. They're about stopping the constant productivity so you remember who you are and what matters. Vexith sat quietly processing this. Around him, the coffee shop hummed with inefficient human activity. A student was supposedly studying but spent more time on social media. An elderly couple shared one scone, making it last an hour. A writer stared at a blank laptop screen, apparently achieving nothing. And yet, something was happening. The student laughed at a video and showed it to the person next to them, starting a conversation. The elderly couple held hands between bites. The writer suddenly started typing frantically, having apparently found inspiration in the blankness. They're not being unproductive, Vexith said slowly. They're recharging, connecting, finding inspiration. These are invisible processes that my sensors cannot measure. Exactly. Tomas grinned. Now you're getting it. Vexitha's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. I believe I am beginning to understand why my conquest is failing. You cannot optimize humanity because humanity is not a system. It is a continuous improvisation. That night, Vexith returned to the absolute certainty and called a full command assembly. I am recommending we abort the conquest, he announced. The shocked silence lasted exactly 4.7 seconds before everyone started talking at once. Sir, we've never failed a conquest. The High Command will demand explanations. Our projections showed. Silence, Vexith commanded. I'm not saying we failed. I'm saying we were attempting the wrong objective. We cannot conquer Earth because Earth has already conquered itself through controlled chaos. But perhaps. He paused, perhaps we can learn from them instead. Junior Commander Zale spoke up hesitantly. Sir, are you suggesting the Zen-3 Empire should adopt inefficiency? I am suggesting, Vexith replied, that perhaps our efficiency has a cost we never calculated. When was the last time any of us simply stopped? Experienced something without optimizing it? Made a choice based on feeling rather than calculation? The command crew looked at each other, neural implants flickering as they searched their memories. None of them could remember. Tomorrow, Vexith declared, the entire crew will experience what humans call a lunch break. 1 hour. No work. No optimization. We will simply be. Tactical Officer QNN raised a manipulator. Sir, what will we do during this hour? Vexith's optical sensors glimmered with something that might have been anticipation. I have no idea. But I suspect that is precisely the point. The empire of lunch breaks. 6 months after the invasion, Earth hadn't been conquered. Instead, something far stranger had happened. The Zenthri had set up an embassy. Not a military outpost. Not an integration facility. An actual embassy with diplomatic staff, cultural exchange programs, and, most baffling to the Zenthri High Command, a cafeteria that served both Zenthri nutrient paste and human food. Ambassador Vexith Kor, he'd been demoted from commander, though he insisted it was a lateral career transition, stood in said cafeteria with Cassidy Okoye, watching Zenthri officers hesitantly try their first pizza. Junior Ambassador Zale is attempting to calculate the optimal cheese-to-sauce ratio, Vexith observed. Tell them to stop calculating and just taste it, Cassidy suggested. Vexith relayed the message. Zale took a bite without analysis, and their optical sensors widened in surprise. Then they took another bite. Then another. I believe Zale is experiencing what humans call enjoying food, Vexith said with evident satisfaction. The cultural exchange program had become the most unexpected success. Humans taught Zenthri about art, music, sports, things with no optimal solutions. Meanwhile, Zenthri taught humans advanced mathematics and engineering, though they were learning to accept when humans wanted to solve problems the interesting way, instead of the correct way. In a classroom in Singapore, Zenthri scientist Krell attempted to teach quantum physics to a group of high school students. The particle exists in a superposition of states until observed, Krell explained. A student named Mei Lin raised her hand. So it's like when I'm both hungry and not hungry until I actually check the fridge? Krell's neural implant flickered. That is, not technically accurate, but it is an unexpectedly useful analogy. How did you generate that comparison? I dunno, it just felt right. Felt right, Krell repeated, making a note. Intuitive learning processes. The High Command was correct. We have much to study here. In exchange, a human artist named Jackson Cole was teaching Zenthri officers about improvisation through a jazz workshop. The key to jazz is listening and responding, Jackson explained, his saxophone gleaming under the lights. You can't plan it. You have to feel where the music wants to go. Tactical Officer QNN attempted a saxophone solo. It was mathematically perfect and completely soulless. Okay, now mess it up, Jackson suggested. Intentionally introduce errors? Intentionally introduce you. Don't play what's correct. Play what you feel. QNN tried again, this time missing a note, overcorrecting, stumbling into an accidental rhythm that actually sounded interesting. There, Jackson exclaimed. That's it. That's jazz. But I made 7.3 mistakes per measure. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. There's a difference. Perhaps the most significant change happened on the absolute certainty itself. Vexith had instituted mandatory daily lunch breaks for the entire crew. The first week had been uncomfortable, Zenthri sitting in the new break room, unsure what to do with unstructured time. But gradually things began to happen. Officers started conversations that weren't about work. Someone brought in a puzzle, an entirely non-productive activity. Junior Ambassador Zale began sketching, producing drawings that served no function except to exist. I don't understand what I'm creating, Zale admitted to Vexith one afternoon, showing them a drawing of Earth's sunset. It serves no purpose. Perhaps the purpose is the creation itself, Vexith suggested. Humans taught me that not everything needs a function beyond existence. The Zenthri High Command, monitoring from their home system, observed these changes with growing alarm and fascination. They had sent Vexith to conquer a planet. Instead, he'd sent back reports about lunch breaks, coffee, and something called work-life balance. Supreme Coordinator Nexith initiated a long-range communication. Ambassador Vexith, your reports are troubling. You describe the crew engaging in hobbies and social bonding. These behaviors reduce productive output by 23%. Yes, Vexith agreed. But they increase long-term crew satisfaction by 67%, reduce neural implant malfunctions by 89%, and have resulted in 3 unexpected innovations that our engineers developed during what they call shower thoughts. Shower thoughts. Ideas that emerge during non-productive activities. Apparently, the human brain continues processing problems when it appears to be doing nothing. They call it subconscious problem solving. That is highly inefficient. It is also highly effective. Back on Earth, the integration experiments continued. The city of Toronto had agreed to let Zen3 optimize their traffic system, but only if they incorporated human factors, which meant allowing for scenic routes, accepting that some people would always be late regardless of traffic optimization, and building in time for what humans called vibes. Traffic engineer Patricia Aladiel worked alongside Zen3 technical specialist Vorn on the project. So the optimal route from point A to point B is Highway 401, Vorn explained. But you want to recommend the lakefront route, which adds 12 minutes? Because sometimes people need to see water, Patricia explained. It makes them calmer. Happier. Yeah, they're 12 minutes later, but they arrive in a better mood. What's the value of that? Vorn's processors hummed as they attempted to calculate the value of improved mood. I am beginning to suspect this value cannot be precisely measured. Most important things can't be, Patricia agreed. The breakthrough came during what humans call a lunch meeting, a concept that had initially horrified the Zen3 but which they were learning to appreciate. Vexith sat with Cassidy, Secretary General Tanaka, and several other human leaders in a garden restaurant. The meeting had been scheduled to discuss trade agreements. Instead, they were halfway through their meal and had barely mentioned business. So let me get this straight, Vexith said, attempting to eat pasta with his manipulator appendages. You scheduled a business meeting during a meal, but the expectation is that we socialize first? The meal is the business meeting, Cassidy explained. We're building relationships. Trust. Understanding. You can't negotiate well with someone you don't understand as a person. But this is inefficient. Is it? Tanaka countered. Would you rather we sat in a conference room for 2 hours, formally presenting our positions, or eat good food together, laugh, share stories, and arrive at an agreement because we actually like each other? Vexith considered this. 6 months ago, he would have chosen the conference room without hesitation. Now, sitting in a garden eating imperfect pasta, listening to Cassidy tell a story about her daughter's school play, he realized something fundamental had shifted. I believe, he said slowly, that the Zen3 empire may have been optimizing the wrong variables. We measured productivity, efficiency, output. We never measured satisfaction, creativity, joy. Because those are hard to measure, Cassidy said. No. Because we assumed they didn't matter. Vexith set down his fork. But they do matter. A crew that takes breaks is more creative. A society that values rest is more resilient. A civilization that makes time for lunch is happier. So what now? Tanaka asked. Your high command expected you to conquer us. Instead, Vexith replied, I think you conquered us. Not with weapons or force, but with lunch breaks and coffee and the radical idea that life should be enjoyed, not just optimized. A server approached their table. Dessert menu? Dessert is highly unnecessary from a nutritional standpoint, Vexith observed. Then he smiled, a gesture he'd learned from humans, his mandibles arranged in an approximation of pleasure. I'll have the chocolate cake. 3 months later, the Zen3 High Command made an unprecedented decision. They officially ended all conquest operations and restructured as the Zen3 Cooperative Commonwealth. The change was inspired by a single line from Vexith's final report. We built an empire on logic and conquered 47 worlds. But we never learned to live in them. Humans built their civilization on lunch breaks, coffee, inefficiency, and chaos. And they're happier than we've ever been. The report concluded with a recommendation that shocked the entire Zen3 civilization. I propose we stop trying to optimize the universe and start learning to enjoy it instead. On Earth, in a coffee shop in Portland, Tomas poured a drink for a Zen3 customer, not their first alien customer anymore but a regular. They still tried to optimize their coffee order sometimes, but they were getting better at just accepting that a beverage could be enjoyed without being perfect. In Atlanta, Princess of Chaos Emma taught Junior Ambassador Zale how to build a pillow fort. The structural integrity was terrible. It was the most fun Zale had ever experienced. In Seattle, Nurse Indira Ramesh sat in the break room with 2 of her colleagues and a visiting Zen3 medical observer, sharing stories about their worst shifts. The Zen3 was learning that sometimes healing required grief, and grief required time. And aboard what was no longer called the absolute certainty but had been renamed the calculated spontaneity, the crew gathered for their daily lunch break. They ate, talked, played games, sketched, read, or simply sat in comfortable silence. Commander, no, Ambassador, Vexith Core looked out at Earth, the little blue planet that had defeated an empire not with weapons but with the simple revolutionary act of taking a break. You know what I've learned? Vexith said to no one in particular. Junior Ambassador Zale looked up from their sketch. What? The humans were right. You can conquer the galaxy with logic and efficiency. But if you want to actually enjoy the galaxy? Vexith held up his coffee cup, still couldn't quite get the proportions right, but it tasted better for the imperfection. You've got to take lunch. On Earth, in break rooms and cafeterias, on park benches and coffee shops, in the margins between productivity and rest, humanity continued its ancient tradition. They built empires on lunch breaks. They conquered nothing and everything. They remained beautifully, chaotically, inefficiently human. And in time, the Zenthri learned to be beautifully, chaotically, inefficiently themselves. The galaxy was better for it. Epilogue, 5 years later. The Galactic Cooperative Council held its annual summit on a rotating basis between member worlds. This year it was Earth's turn, and the venue chosen was a small cafe in Melbourne, Australia. 14 species gathered around mismatched tables, drinking beverages of various compositions, discussing interstellar trade routes, scientific collaboration and cultural exchange programs. And then, precisely at 1 p.m., everyone stopped. Lunch break, announced the human representative. The Zenthri representative, Vexith, now serving as the cooperative's ambassador for cultural integration, clicked their mandibles in approval. Seconded. The meeting paused. Someone to get food. Others simply sat in the sunshine. A few started an impromptu game of cards. One species began singing. The Zerillian diplomat, new to the council, looked confused. We are stopping productive negotiations for recreation? An older Zenthri representative, QNN, who had become an expert in what they called applied inefficiency, smiled. Welcome to the new galaxy. Here we've learned that the best ideas don't come from optimal conditions. They come from lunch breaks. But why? Because, Vexith replied, watching humans, Zenthri, and a dozen other species mingling in the afternoon sun, you can't build a civilization worth living in if you never stop to actually live in it. The Zerillian considered this, then noticed the chocolate cake on the dessert menu. I suppose, they said slowly, we could resume negotiations in an hour? Now you're learning, Cassidy Okoye said with a grin, passing them the menu. Welcome to Earth. Welcome to lunch. And somewhere in the universe, 47 perfectly optimized, efficiently conquered, utterly joyless former Zenthri colonies began their first experiments with something radical. Coffee breaks. The revolution, it turned out, would be catered.